So, in talking with various people um, who call in and inquire about our services, I can't help but reminisce on my experience with, my dad's health failing and the beginning of a 7-year journey in terms of our care. And I think one of the things that, I noticed right off is we lived in Ohio, he lived in Louisiana, and we would come and visit, and he wouldn't have a lot of groceries in the house. He would have beans and beanie weenies, in the house. And not that we noticed anything about his eating habits, because when we would eat with him, he always had a great appetite in things, but he just didn't have a lot of food in the house. And it made me concerned about what he was eating when no one was around. Now, one of the beauties that we had at the time was that I had a wonderful cousin who used to cook for him and bring him food periodically. But that was not all the time. But I also noticed that he and I went to lunch one day when I was visiting him, and he was just really enjoying his meal. So I could tell that he really enjoyed good food when he got it, but he was not going to the extent that he needed to prepare it for himself. So his diet was likely suffering. So when you're talking to your mom or dad, or visiting with them or whatever, you might just want to be aware of the diet and the nutrition and things going on. Another thing I think was really good and that we did a fairly good job of is checking in on him about his doctor visits. Did he have scheduled visits? What physician were the visits for? What was going on? Not only check in to make sure he had appointments, because if someone, elderly or not having appointments, then they may be disregarding their health. But my dad always had doctor visits. He went to see the doc. He also would predominantly give us positive reports, which, as we looked back on it in hindsight, was not always the case. Dad always wanted to present the best case scenario, that everything was just fine. The way that you can kind of reassure yourself, whether that's the truth or not, is, if you're living out of town, plan a visit around a doctor's visit. If you live in the same city, go to a doctor's visit with them, and you want to go with them to make them feel really good about, hey, I want to go to the doctor with you, just see what's going on. But take the opportunity to talk to the doctor and find out from their perspective. Go in the exam room, watch the exam, ask questions, inquire. Why are certain medications being prescribed? And talk about prognosis in terms of your loved one, because our loved ones have a really neat way of going and seeing the doctor and then coming out as if everything's fine, but yet they have what my dad would call a boatload of pills to take. And you don't have a boatload of pills to take unless something's really going on, right? So that's another thing. Probably one other thing that we didn't do as good a job with as you can, that's check in with family and friends that do live around your loved one, to get their perspective of how your loved one is doing. Because chances are your loved one will put on a face when they're not doing so well. They'll cover up things that are not doing so well, because the generation, especially the greatest generation that my dad was a part of, it was all about being strong, and he never wanted to show any weaknesses. So check in with family and friends, and to see their perspective, because they're not going to probably hide as much from them as they do family. And those three things, I think, diet, doctor visits, and checking in with family are probably pretty key things to be checking on. Again, my name is Steve Watley with Homewell Senior Care of Collin County.